Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever actually stopped to think about what happens before you take a bite of your daily meal? I mean, really think about it. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the incredible, often totally unseen global infrastructure that literally exists just to keep our food safe. From the soil where it's grown all the way to the global laws that govern it, there's this massive hidden journey protecting us every single day.
To really grasp why this hidden infrastructure is absolutely crucial, we got to anchor ourselves to the stakes here. 600 million. That is the staggering estimate of people worldwide who get sick from contaminated food every single year. It's a massive, mind-boggling number that really shows just how vulnerable our plates actually are.
But it's not just about getting a bad stomachache. 420,000, that's the annual death toll globally because of unsafe food. This isn't a small issue. It highlights a severe, urgent public health crisis that touches absolutely everyone, no matter where you live.
Section 1. Farm-to-Table Hazards, the Complex Journey.
So, let's put on our investigator hats for a second. To stop these illnesses, we need to uncover exactly where our food supply chain gets compromised. There are three major categories of hazards that can infiltrate our food, both the invisible kind and the very visible kind. First up, biological contaminants. Think bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi. This also includes prions, which are these abnormal proteins that can actually lead to fatal neurological diseases. Next, we have chemical contaminants, ranging from heavy metals and detergents to PCBs. And finally, physical contaminants. Yeah, we're literally talking about accidentally biting into plastic, stones, or even glass. Yikes, right? It's crucial to understand that exposure to some of these, especially the chemical toxins and prions, can cause severe long-term health effects like cancer or permanent neurological damage.
Let's move to and see how this builds. These hazards can infiltrate at pretty much any point across the actual food supply chain. The chain basically has four main steps: production, where the farming and harvesting happen; processing, where things get converted and packaged; distribution, which is the transporting part; and finally, preparation, getting that food ready to eat. The kind of terrifying reality here is that contamination can occur at literally any one of these steps. It could be contaminated irrigation water during production, pests sneaking in bacteria during distribution, or just plain old poor storage.
Now, sometimes the hazard isn't even an accident. Take food adulteration, which usually pops up during the processing stage. This is a specific, completely fraudulent practice where toxic or just really inferior compounds are intentionally added to food. Why on earth would someone do that? Well, usually to artificially improve the way it looks, slash manufacturing costs, or make it last longer on the shelf, completely tossing consumer safety out the window.
Contaminated food can actually lead to over 200 different diseases. And while anybody can be impacted, the groups at the absolute highest risk are elderly folks over 65, kids under 5, pregnant women, and anyone who is immunocompromised. For these vulnerable populations, foodborne pathogens don't just cause a mild inconvenience. They can lead to severe, life-threatening complications like kidney failure, arthritis, or even miscarriage. And beyond individual health, unsafe food has massive macro-level consequences that basically ripple across the entire globe. It puts a huge strain on global economies through the immense cost of illness. It severely reduces workplace productivity. It directly impacts global food security, our actual ability to access enough nutritious food. And really alarmingly, the misuse of treatments for these pathogens contributes heavily to the growing global crisis of antimicrobial resistance. It's a huge domino effect.
Section 2. The Global Shield, Codex Alimentarius.
So, with all these wild hazards threatening our food supply every day, how does the world fight back? Enter the Codex Alimentarius. Sounds fancy, right? It's actually just Latin for food code. Established way back in 1963 by the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization. This is an international collection of standards. To demystify that highly technical Latin jargon for a second, think of it as the ultimate, science-based global shield, created to protect consumer health and promote fair practices in the food trade.
And it operates on just a massive scale of collaboration. 188. That is the number of Codex member nations that actively sit down together to negotiate and hammer out these science-based food safety texts. It's a truly global effort. Getting 188 countries to agree on anything is a big deal.
So what exactly does this food code actually produce? Well, it breaks down into several specific texts. We have standards, which basically lay out the absolute baseline rules for food safety and specific commodities. Then guidelines provide the best practices for things like nutrition labeling and overall food hygiene. Codes of practice step in to offer really precise methods for reducing contamination, like preventing mycotoxins in crops. And finally, MRLs, or maximum residue limits, which dictate the safe allowable levels for veterinary drugs and pesticides left in our foods. These texts are so highly regarded globally that they even serve as critical references in World Trade Organization disputes. It's serious business. The Codex isn't just some dusty, static document sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's constantly evolving to meet brand new challenges. Just to give you an idea, throughout late 2026, global committees are actively meeting to analyze new risks. In September, they'll be tackling pesticide residues in Beijing and coordinating policies for Europe over in Berlin. In October, they'll focus on import and export inspection in Perth, and then food hygiene in Scottsdale in November. These continuous, ongoing meetings ensure our global trade is protected with the absolute latest scientific advice.
Section 3. Cascading Defense. Protecting your plate. We've looked at the international law side of things, but how does all of that actually translate to the bite of food on your fork? Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it shows that public health is a layered, shared responsibility. At the global level, big entities like the WHO, FAO, and Codex share crucial information through networks like InfoSan. Then, at the national level, governments handle the enforcement, surveillance, and outbreak management. Dropping down to the industry level, businesses absolutely must ensure compliance, robust staff training, and quality assurance. And finally, we hit the individual level, which is you and me, taking responsibility for safe handling and prep at home or in our local establishments.
Before food even reaches us at that individual level, the industry relies on a really critical framework called HACCP. That stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Point. Basically, this is a highly targeted food safety management system used by the industry to actively identify, evaluate, and control potential hazards during production and processing. It's exactly how the industry operationalizes safety long before those ingredients ever reach our kitchens.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, the final line of defense is right in your hands. And let's be honest here, it is incredibly easy to fall into dangerous everyday habits. Unwashed hands before prepping? The safe, non-negotiable alternative is keeping your hands and prep areas strictly, spotlessly clean. Using the exact same knife for raw meat and fresh veggies? Look, we've all been tempted to skip washing that knife to save time, but that is a one-way ticket to cross-contamination. We absolutely must separate raw and cooked foods. Storing food improperly on the counter? We gotta keep food at a safe temperature to stop bacterial growth right in its tracks. And finally, using questionable ingredients compared to relying only on safe water and raw materials. These are the crucial, actionable safety measures you can and honestly must control in your own home.
We've traced this incredible, often totally unseen journey of your food, all the way from the soil up to the massive 188-nation scale of global food safety laws. It's this complex cascading shield protecting every single bite we take. So knowing this hidden journey and the massive web of global laws working around the clock to protect your plate, how will you handle the ingredients for your very next meal?